Brought to you by...
An idea that I find terrifying is the notion of those I thought I knew suddenly being somehow different. Maybe it's the influence of films like Body Snatchers, but it's an idea that has planted itself into my mind ever since I was young. To this day, when I head home for the holidays, in the back of my mind I begin to wonder, what if the people I love and call family are not the people I knew them to be? Hello friends, and welcome back to ETF. Returning home for Christmas, a woman finds herself in an unsettling situation when a stranger insists that she is her sister. As the night progresses, reality blurs, and the line between truth and delusion becomes increasingly difficult to discern. The Stranger, directed by Catherine Oostman, is a chilling and atmospheric short film that delves deep into the psychological terror of familial bonds, identity, and the unnerving possibility of being replaced. This one packs a significant punch in its brief runtime, exploring the eerie uncertainty of reality when one's sense of identity is put to the test. Oostman employs a minimalist approach, using the familiar setting of a home dressed for Christmas as a stage for the unfolding of horror. The coziness of the holiday decorations contrasts sharply with the escalating tension between the characters. The cinematography is tight and claustrophobic, enhancing the sense of entrapment as the protagonist navigates this increasingly surreal situation. The sound design is particularly effective in this film. The directive to watch the film with headphones is no mere suggestion. It's an essential part of the experience. The audio is layered with subtle nuances that contribute to the growing dread, distant sounds, whispered voices, and the unnerving silence that often fills the space between dialogues. These elements work together to build an atmosphere of paranoia and unease, making the viewer question what is real alongside our protagonist. The film wastes no time in setting up its central conflict. The protagonist's return home, which should be a comforting experience, is immediately disrupted by the presence of this stranger, allowing the tension to mount slowly. Each interaction between the protagonist and the stranger is laced with uncertainty, as the viewer, much like the protagonist, tries to piece together what is happening. Oostman skillfully avoids over-explaining, allowing the ambiguity of the situation to drive the horror. The narrative plays with themes of identity and reality, making the viewer question the protagonist's sanity, as well as their own understanding of the events unfolding on screen. The psychological horror is subtle but potent, relying more on the disquieting atmosphere and the breakdown of the protagonist's mental state, rather than on jump scares or gore. The performances are restrained but highly effective. The actors convey a sense of deep unease, and their interactions are tinged with a mix of confusion, fear, and desperation. The stranger's calm insistence on her identity creates an unnerving contrast to the protagonist's growing panic, which is portrayed with a believable sense of dread. The tension between the two characters is palpable, drawing the viewers into the psychological turmoil that defines the film. At the heart of The Stranger is the protagonist's growing uncertainty about her own identity and her place in her family. When she arrives home and finds a stranger claiming to be her sister, this triggers an immediate psychological crisis. The home, typically a symbol of safety and familiarity, becomes a space of anxiety and alienation. This sudden shift disrupts the protagonist's sense of self, as she grapples with the possibility that her entire reality might be a lie. Psychologically, this scenario reflects the fundamental fear of being displaced, of having one's identity utterly erased. The stranger's calm assertion of her identity, juxtaposed with the protagonist's increasing panic, heightens this fear. The protagonist's desperate attempts to assert her own place within the family and to validate her memories suggest a deep fear of losing her sense of self. This fear is not just about losing a family role, but also about the unraveling of her own identity, as she questions whether she is the intruder or if the stranger is indeed an imposter. The mistrust that develops between the protagonist and the stranger is central to the film's psychological tension. From the moment the protagonist encounters the stranger, there is an undercurrent of paranoia that begins to color their interactions. The protagonist's immediate instinct is to reject the stranger's claim. But as the night progresses, the stranger's calm demeanor and assistance begin to sow seeds of doubt in the protagonist's mind. This mistrust is a powerful psychological tool used by Ustman to explain the breakdown of communication and understanding between individuals, the reflection of her own insecurities and fears. As she begins to doubt herself and her memories, the mistrust deepens, creating a psychological chasm between the two characters. The dynamic between the protagonist and the stranger can be seen as a metaphor for the broader human experience of trust and the fear of betrayal. The protagonist's growing suspicion mirrors the way mistrust can erode even the closest of relationships, leading to a sense of isolation and alienation. The more the protagonist doubts the stranger's identity, the more she becomes isolated in her own reality, unable to trust anyone, including herself. One of the most intriguing psychological aspects of The Stranger is the exploration of the unreliable mind. The protagonist's gradual unraveling suggests that her perception of reality is slipping. This is a common theme in psychological horror, where the mind becomes a battleground for conflicting truths. The protagonist's struggle to determine what is real and what is imagined creates a sense of cognitive dissonance that is deeply unsettling. The film plays with the concept by never fully resolving the question of who the stranger truly is. The ambiguity forces the viewer to experience the same psychological tension as the protagonist, where certainty is elusive and the mind's interpretations are suspect. The film suggests that our minds, when faced with the unknown, can become our own worst enemies, creating fears and doubts that may have no basis in reality, but feel entirely real. The relationship between our protagonist and the stranger also touches on the psychological fear of the other. The idea that someone close to us could be fundamentally different or unknown. This fear is particularly potent in familial relationships, where trust and familiarity are supposed to be implicit. The stranger's claim to be the protagonist's sister challenges this fundamental trust, forcing the protagonist to confront the terrifying possibility that someone she should know, very intimately at that, is in fact a complete stranger. This fear of the other ties into the broader psychological themes of xenophobia and the discomfort with those who are different from us. In the context of the film, it becomes a personal and intimate fear, magnified by the setting of the home. The home, a place of refuge, becomes a site of psychological conflict, where the protagonist's fear of the other is in direct conflict with her need for familial connection and safety. The Stranger is a compelling psychological horror film that uses the dynamics of mistrust, identity, and the fear of displacement to create a deeply unsettling experience. The film's exploration of the unreliable mind and the breakdown of trust between the protagonist and the stranger serves as a potent metaphor for the fragility of human relationships and the terrifying possibility that our sense of self and reality can be upended by forces beyond our control. Through the lens of psychological horror, the film asks the viewer to confront unforgettable questions about identity, trust, and the nature of reality itself, making The Stranger a thought-provoking and chilling entry into the genre. that's going to be all for now. If you enjoyed this video, I urge you to go check this one out for yourself. I've linked it down in the description below. Please consider giving this video a like, subscribe for more content if you're not already. Get some of your friends to subscribe. And if you really want to help support this channel, find us over on Patreon. Every little bit helps this channel grow and gets us a little closer to that goal of being able to make these videos for you full time, without having to take extended hiatus anymore. Until next time, stay safe, and as always, thanks for watching.